49ers have themselves a new defensive coordinator, folks, one that we should be excited about. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about free agency. We're going to talk about the other quarterback. Yes, that quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, believe it or not. There's a lot to talk about tonight. Suneil and I are going to cover it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's your boy, Jesse, and I'm here with my guy, so real, Suneil. What's up, Suneil?
Man, I apologize for everybody for holding up the show. Had a little bit of technical difficulties, running a little bit late, but you know what? That's why we do it to the last second, my guy. We still in here.
You know it. You know it. Marco, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Make sure you subscribe to my guy, Marco.
Subscribe, because people don't know Clutch Gene Sports is Marco. Marco, like I've been saying, one of the most tapped in guys in content creation for 49ers. Definitely go do that. Him and Rohan do some great things on that channel, so definitely go check him out.
Yeah, and I don't want to blow up his spot too much, but I hear a lot of things before the blue check marks report him. Thanks to Marco. So I'll just say that. Definitely, when he talks, there's usually an agenda behind it because he knows something that other people don't. So make sure that you give him a follow as well.
One more thing about Marco. Yeah. He does great breakdowns. He's very tapped into rookies and things like that. So if you guys want a lot of like off-season type rookie type things, you gotta go follow him. They'll have them all on his show.
Absolutely. Hey, so last week we talked about the defensive coordinator position. We talked about Fangio, and I was really hyping up my guy Steve Wilks here because I think everybody, again, at that point, we knew who Fangio was. There would be excitement if Fangio was brought in, but sometimes we don't know about the other candidates. Got a little squirrely there for a second. It seemed like Chris Kosirak was going to potentially want to be a DC. Thankfully, he stayed as the defensive line coach. Steve Wilks is here. Now that we have landed Mr. Wilks, what is your overall thoughts on the hire? How are you feeling about it? Just give us a little preview into your mind, Suneil, around Steve Wilks.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, everybody who's everybody is saying that this is a great hire. Mm-hmm. From the national media to content creators to all this kind of stuff, right? And I'm not saying that he's not a bad hire, but I am saying, Jesse, that I did a little bit more research on him. And where's the defense that we're looking at that he had that was so unstoppable, right? I looked at, his Cleveland position, what he did at Cleveland, what he did at Mizzou, and what he did obviously with Carolina. I don't know if any of those were top 5 defenses. I could be wrong, but yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna kind of go towards you and kind of maybe, I know you're real high on him, but make me feel confident about this pick.
Yeah. So in 2017, he's basically been a defensive coordinator for 3 years. It's hard. I'll say this: it's hard to come in and like just turn a defense around overnight. But in Carolina, he had established some things before he became that defensive coordinator. They had the 7th ranked defense. I don't think being top 7 is like anything to sneeze at. Of course, it wasn't like the best defense. It's not. He doesn't have the resume as a defensive coordinator that Fangio has. But 7th ranked defense in 2017. Now 2019, I want to take a step back because Freddie Kitchens was the head coach. Kitchens, other than Tom Zula, might be the most dumpster fire head coach hiring we have ever seen in our entire lives. So I don't know if I want to put a lot of stock into what anybody did under Freddie Kitchens. Because like I said, if we had an offensive guy that was working for Tom Zula, it's like, well, is it really that guy's fault, or is it like he was working for Jim Tom Zula?
Right.
And so for me, it's more about like the intangibles and the fit. when I look at Steve Wilks, he's in line with what the 49ers have had from a personality trait standpoint, which means that they can stay consistent. If you look at Robert Saleh, he was a fired up, like galvanize the troops type of guy that you want to play for. Then you bring in D'Amico, who was a little bit more reserved behind the mic, but when he was on the field, I mean, this guy was fired up. People wanted to play for him. Now, Wilks may not be as outwardly fired up when you see him on the sideline. He may not, give you the big like emotional outburst that you're going to see from a D'Amico or a Saleh. But what you are going to get is a guy who does galvanize the troops very similarly to those two. And so just from a consistency standpoint, I think he brings that as far as his personality, which I think it can be overlooked a little bit because now, yes, you're learning a new person, but you're not learning a new personality trait as a player. So you've got that. You've got a guy who plays a lot of heavy zone, which is what the 49ers have been known for since 2017. And then a guy who runs a base 4-3, which I don't think is that big of a deal. We talked about Fangio and running a 3-4 and how you can change things up to make it really a 4-3. So I'm not as big into that, but still, it is worth mentioning. So for me, when I just put all those things together, I know that he's really good at developing defensive backs, which is something that the 49ers, I mean, that's kind of been their weakness, is the defensive backside of things. So overall, I don't know. I'm happy. Like Fangio was the guy. Like Fangio, that's the unicorn. But I really do feel like the reason Fangio's not here is not because Fangio didn't want to be here. I think it's because Shanahan didn't want Fangio here for whatever reason. Whether it was a difference in philosophy, whether it was a personality clash, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But there was a reason that he held off on going to Miami and coming to interview here. Once he left the building, I'm like, they don't want Fangio. For whatever reason, they don't want this guy. So
yeah, and I don't know. I would say it's only probably money because they already brought him in as a consultant. So it's not like there wasn't a relationship already there. He was already on staff. I kind of, the thing that I do like is, right, obviously he came up doing DB type stuff, right? The defensive line, Kosrick being able to stay here, I think was huge. So we know that the defensive line is going to be taken care of. Saleh and D'Amico Ryans did a great job developing these linebackers. So we have the 1-2 punch with Warner and Greenlaw there. Linebackers are good. The one group that we still haven't had like a specialist per se, defensive coach to do that, like, which is the back end of the defense. We finally got in Wilks. So young guys like Lenore, Ambry Thomas, got obviously Womack, and then, whomever there, I think they'll still draft, 1 or 2 corners this upcoming draft. Obviously Hufanga there, they might draft another safety. So like these guys, I think are going to benefit the most. And if we could get the level of play in the secondary, which is still pretty good, right? The secondary was pretty good this last season. If we could get them to elite status, like the defensive line and the linebackers, this defense is going to be nasty.
Yeah, I think so. And then, Robert says, we need a coach, somebody who coaches the boys up, not a hype man. I don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think he's also a good coach. I mean, Josh Norman got paid when he was the defensive backs coach. Okay. You look at that team and he took over the Panthers team, which was Panthers were not in a good spot. They were 2-4, I believe, when he took over. They were going through quarterback flux. The locker room was completely lost. It seemed like at that point. They end up trading Christian McCaffrey. It wasn't a good spot to be in. And sure enough, here comes Wilks to take over as the interim. They go 4-2. They get to that 6-6 mark. All of a sudden, they're fighting for this playoff spot. And they were this close to beating Tampa and actually winning that division. So I think Steve Wilks is putting on his resume that he can coach guys up and they can do some things. And that was as a head coach. So now you get to take a step back and just focus on the defense. I think Wilks is a good hire. I do.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I did say he doesn't have like the numbers necessarily to put up there, but the truth is he hadn't ever gotten a chance to really develop, like you said, he at the coach at Arizona, they fired him really quick, even though, look, Arizona was a dumpster fire. Cleveland, you already mentioned. Carolina, he didn't get a chance to develop there. So a lot of it might be bad luck, but also, I think this is the opportunity where we really get to see what he's capable of. Clearly, like I said, everybody who's anybody is saying this is a great hire. I haven't heard one person be negative about it. And obviously, when you have the type of defense and the athletes and the talent that the 49ers defense has, I would say it's probably going to be hard to mess that up. But we've also seen the caliber of the two guys before him and what this defense is capable of. So a lot of pressure on him. He has to be able to perform. There's no excuses for him not to have a top 5 defense next year with what he's inheriting.
Yeah, I think the other thing though too, and this is where I'll kind of throw it back on you, being the Shanahan guy of us two, bottom line is, if you ask me the 2 areas where Shanahan excels, I think it's development of coaches and players, and I think it's play design. And so when he chooses somebody on the coaching staff, whether you like it or not, I think that's one area where we do have to trust Shanahan, because has he missed yet? He hasn't missed yet. He really hasn't.
Even a guy like Greasy, right? Like Brian Greasy, where it came out of left field, came out of the announcing booth, right? And he's been phenomenal. You see what he did with obviously Purdy and Jimmy had a great year as well. So, I would agree. One thing that Kyle Shanahan is, has a long leash with is who he picks on his coaching staff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marco asked, thoughts from both of you. Having a DC that is secondary first, I think we both, did talk about it a little bit, but I think that it is huge. Although, ironically enough, I will say this, Marco, the secondary really started to come on strong, and there are some holes in the secondary for sure. It seems like the nickel spot they're going to have to figure out. We hope that it's Womack or Lenore. Maybe they bring back Mosley. We'll see. But they have some pieces back there that you can rely on for sure. I think not E-Man. We don't know about him, but you have Ward, you have Hafunga, who are both really, really good players. Then you have Lenore, who played good down the stretch. I actually think it's the defensive line that's kind of the weakness going into this offseason. That's just me personally. And not that there's a true weakness. Any unit that has a Bosa on it and an Armstead is not a true weakness, but for as much as they've put in to that defensive line since 2017, that is the unit that there's the most question marks about. We don't have a running mate with Bosa. We don't have a for sure running mate next to Armstead on the interior. There's some things that they've got to figure out. We know the linebacking core is in a really good spot. Like I just said, the secondary, they've got 3 guys there that we for sure do like. So, the one time they bring in a guy who's a secondary guy, they actually might need it more on the D line, but that's where Kocurek comes in.
Right. So that's where it's a big deal to have Kocurek. And out of all of the lines, or let's say all of the phases of defense or all the levels of defense, we've seen the 49ers be able to patchwork with one-year guys that just want to be able to be showcased on a really good defensive line, come in, produce, and then that's the one where you could develop the kind of conveyor belt or like merry-go-round and still be good because you have the anchors there with Armstead and Bosa.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bullocks, yeah. I know that you talked about him a little bit during the when we knew that D'Amico was gone. I've talked about him a little bit as well. I like Bullocks, and Unlin's gone now. So I think that there's a possibility that ends up happening, Marco. I do. Kelts, yeah, I would love to get Burns, trust me, but I don't think it's going to happen. Ioannidis is the only person that is a free agent really on that whole defense. So they're going to have to trade for him.
They have a guy on the offensive line that I wouldn't mind bringing over. I don't know how much relationship he has with Bozeman over there, but Bozeman would be a nice fit for the 49ers. Obviously the 49ers need a center, and him and CMC have a relationship, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And he was the head man there, so I would assume that he would have, cachet
some
with
kind
everybody,
of pull, right?
Yeah, we'll see. So yes, I'll say this. I'm excited about Wilkes. Was kind of hyping him up on last Tuesday's show. Did cut that into its own video, and it seems like a lot of people really enjoyed that. So definitely go check that out if you want to know more about Steve Wilkes, because I did reach out to Panthers content creators and just got their word for it. I mean, go to the source, and they all liked him a lot. So
way to be Nostradamus on that one, Jesse.
Yeah. I wish it was a full-on prediction. All right. We got to talk about it. We know he's on the way out, but it is an interesting story that is starting to develop. Jimmy and Kyle seem to be at odds down the stretch here of their relationship. You know, we saw Ryan, shout out to Ryan. He put out a shot on Twitter. I think it was about 48 hours ago, saying that he had heard, he wasn't confirming, but that he had heard that Jimmy Garoppolo possibly could have suited up for the NFC Championship game, and that was causing some issues. And people get mad at him for posting it, but then all of a sudden an article comes out and says that there is not necessarily something to that, but there is something to their relationship being at odds here. Jay Glazer, right before we came on, was recently interviewed and did say today also that they had hoped that he would be the emergency third quarterback for that NFC Championship, which did not happen. So we're starting to hear a lot of possible rumors back to that New England Patriots Jimmy Garoppolo coming through here down the tail end. And Kyle Shanahan was not a fan of it, it seems, allegedly. So what are your thoughts on this whole story? Why now? Does it matter? Like, just this whole thing is kind of bizarre. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the fact that maybe Jimmy could have suited up, which, look, there has been no corroboration of that. You know, a week before, 10 days before, he was still in a boot, right? So what is the reality of whether or not he could have been suited up? The question is, do I believe that there was a falling out with him and Jimmy? I mean, the way Kyle Shanahan answered the Jimmy question in that exit press conference or whatever, it didn't sound like a guy that, you know, was bigging up a guy on his way out type of thing. He's like, nah, he's not coming back. So clearly, I think there is some answers there. What's funny to me, Jesse, is like the amount of people that are like, no, this isn't true. Shanahan and Lynch, you know, they're all, I mean, Shanahan and Jimmy are, you know, cool and all that kind of stuff. But let that be a story about Shanahan not seeing eye to eye with Trey, and then all of a sudden it's just like gospel. Yeah, everybody believes that. Look, man, I absolutely believe that Jimmy and Shanahan probably aren't on the same page. And look, I don't even think when he came on to the team in the beginning of the offseason, they were on the same page. I think it was just like forced. It was like a combination that was forced together this year. Because Jimmy didn't have any other options. And obviously the 49ers knew that they could still kind of utilize him and use him because he's still under contract type of thing. But I, by no stretch of the imagination, think that Jimmy and Kyle are like, have a great friendship. I think it's strictly just a professional relationship. And if there is any truth to the fact that he could have showed up for work and he decided to call out sick, I could see Kyle Shanahan being like even worse about Jimmy. So I think there's some truth to it. But
we saw it going into the 2021 season. It's funny because nobody remembers this conversation, and it was a real short blip on the radar, and it seems like everybody forgot about it. But Jimmy Garoppolo's agent and people came out and said that they felt like they didn't like the way that Shanahan had treated Jimmy Garoppolo in his time there. That was before the 2021 season. So yes, of course, there's some animosity there. You see it in the way that Shanahan reacts on the sideline towards Jimmy Garoppolo. You saw the Jimmy Garoppolo thing come out this year where he said, it seemingly said, these plays suck, man. These guys, you know, they're professionals. They're going to get through it. But I don't think that there's any love lost. And listen, I wasn't going to put it out there, Marco. I've been throwing it out on Twitter. Just kind of like, hey, you know, I heard also, but if you're going to out yourself, then I'm going to talk about it. So got the text messages to prove it. Marco said immediately when he got injured, within 48 hours, that he is expected to be back by the divisional round possibly at the latest NFC Championship, but there is no way that Yee is going to let Jimmy Garoppolo play. Fast forward, then he says to me, this was last Friday now, that he was cleared to play, chose not to. Now, I kept that to myself. Ryan put it out there, not from you, by the way, not even from Marco. He's got his own, people he talks to. He puts it out. I give it the head nod. I'm like, yep, that's what I heard too. Don't say anything about it. Then the Kawakami story comes out today that there's a rift between Jimmy and Shanahan, and it was the week leading up to the NFC Championship, but doesn't know why there was a rift. And then Glazer comes out and essentially throws in like, hey, yeah, they hope that he could be the emergency third quarterback type situation. So listen, I mean, we can think what we want here, but there is a track record of it. I'm very confident that that is the case based off of how everything played out. So shout out to you, Marco. You don't miss, my guy. You don't miss. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's over now. It is over. And I think when you really look at it, it's no surprise that the press conference with Jimmy, when Jimmy was brought up, Kyle Shanahan almost didn't even let the beat writer finish his question. He's like, right. yeah, no shot. No, he's not coming back. Like, he was excited to tell people that Jimmy Garoppolo was not going to be back on this team.
He might not be alive on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. No doubt about it. I wanted to actually answer this because I haven't seen it personally, Michael. Maybe you can enlighten me, but he says, why have most of the content creators started bashing Purdy? Is it just for clicks? Seems like the kid proved himself and is doubtful that this injury will set him back that much. I haven't seen the bashing. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me where it's coming from, but I haven't seen the bashing. I mean, I think there's a little confusion maybe. A lot of people kind of go over the top and say bashing or hating or whatever anytime somebody's critiqued. We're past the Mr. Irrelevant moniker at this point. He's way outplayed that. Now we're talking about, is this guy the future of your franchise? And can you tell that off of a 7 to 10 game stretch? That's the conversation we're having now. We're not, hey, this guy was, he did a good job. He was the last pick in the draft. What do you expect? No, we're past that. Now we're starting to have conversations of who's the franchise guy? Is it Trey? Is it Purdy? Is it neither? Is it both? Like, these are the conversations we're having. And so he's going to be looked at that way and going to be talked about that way. And so now you're going to start to see, conversations come out about, his big time throw rate, how often he actually pushes the ball down the field, how open receivers were. These are the conversations that are going to be had because these are the conversations that need to be had when you're talking about a guy who's potentially the franchise quarterback and trying to figure it out. So I don't think it's hate. I think everybody understands what Purdy did was phenomenal. If anybody can't think that what Purdy did was great, then I don't know. Like maybe if I'm hearing that would be hate because that's just a straight up lie. But now the conversation is changing and it should. He's earned that. And that's, by the way, that's a good thing. That's people in a roundabout way praising Purdy. If we're talking about him as potentially being that guy, that's praise in itself. The fact that he's earned that by being Mr. Irrelevant, being the last pick in the draft, and now he's earned to even be in the conversation as the potential franchise guy, whether you think he's going to be or not, I personally don't think he is that guy. But the fact that we're even having the conversation, I think that's respect, man. I really do. Don't misinterpret what's happening right now. The fact that he's in that conversation, that's a big freaking deal, and he's earned that. So we got to give him credit for that as well. So
chat saying you the one. Chat saying you the hater.
That's fine. I did call him Mr. right now. I don't know. That's not hating. That's again, that's misconstruing. Saying that somebody is good enough to win games for this season and potentially a Super Bowl, that's not hating. I'm just telling you right now that he is not, in my opinion, the guy that you're going to want to give $50 million a year to, strip down the rest of the roster and rely on his right arm. I don't think he'll ever be that guy. So that's not hating. I'm sorry. And if you watch the video, hold on. And if you watch the video, you'll see that in that video on Grant Cohn's show in 2021, I was saying that I like Brock Purdy. So don't put that juju on me. Don't you do that right now. Twisted Clown says, Jesse, did you see Paul Heyman actually did the intro? I did, which is actually really funny. Because, and I don't know if it was you, Twisted Clown. I assume it was, that had David do that on the post-game show. It was actually pretty funny. So there we go. Hold on. What did Marco say? Trey Lance posted on IG. No more boot, posted a pic with 2 shoes on.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, he said, 3 weeks and he's back full go. So There we go. There we go. Mike and maybe he will, but I don't think he really can. I mean, other than winning a Super Bowl, the thing with Brock Purdy is he's already proven he can win with this roster when it's elite. Like, is that even in question anymore? We've seen that. We kind of expect that at this point. We would expect that this team makes the playoffs pretty easily, wins the West, and does that way if Brock Purdy's at the helm. And that's why I think they will choose Brock Purdy. Like, push come to shove, if both are healthy, I think the roster is going to push for Brock Purdy. I think that's going to force Kyle's hand, and maybe he also wants Brock Purdy. I mean, they had the same decision going into the 2021 season. Different quarterback, but it was a guy who was Mr. Right Now and Jimmy Garoppolo versus the potential Mr. Right, and they chose Mr. Right Now. So why would this be any different? The name is different. The player is different, but the actual decision at hand is exactly the same. So I think they're going to choose Purdy. I do. And I think that'll work out for 2023. I'm more curious, does it work out beyond 2023? So he won't shock me. It won't shock me if he does well. I expect him to do well. Okay. Since we're talking about Purdy and we're in this conversation, there is no official word on his surgery. However, we've gotten some clarity, it seems like. It seems like they're leaning towards the internal brace, which for anybody that doesn't understand or doesn't remember, Nick Mullins tore his UCL as well. And they thought he was going to have Tommy John. Well, once they finally got in there and they looked at things, they realized it didn't need to be Tommy John. They ended up going with this internal brace, which is basically, I don't know, in layman's term, it's a really thick cord that they line the UCL with and basically allow it to be a brace that UCL works with for forever and provides that stability and strength. And if that is the scenario that he goes with, I mean, we're talking about 6-month recovery at most. That puts him right near the end of July here. So there is no official word on Purdy. What do you think Purdy should? I mean, like what is the holdup at this point? I guess it sounds like they've made the decision supposedly. So like, what's the holdup? What do you think happens with Purdy? What do you think the result of this whole thing is?
Yeah, so from my understanding, obviously there's a lot of articles and who really knows. First thing is Purdy obviously needs to be comfortable with whatever decision, and he needs to make not only the decision for what's best for him next year, but also what's the best decision for him moving forward, because clearly he's done enough to not only warrant, warrant playing time with the 49ers, or at least be in the discussion of playing time with the 49ers. But I'm sure, other teams are looking at him and seeing that he could be maybe somebody that they would want to take a flyer on as well. So he's built up enough to where he could have like a career here in the NFL, which obviously we know is extremely hard, especially for quarterbacks to be able to maintain a career here. So I think that it obviously has to be kind of like a long, weigh your options. But the last thing I read was they couldn't really make a definitive answer till all the swelling went down and all that kind of stuff to really go in there and kind of see what the situation was. So I think they're just waiting for his elbow to kind of heal in a way that makes it the safest and gives him the best chance for success when they actually, cut him up and look inside and see what they could fix. So that's why I think it's taking some time. They're just being really cautious with him, which, makes sense. That's obviously his throwing shoulder, his throwing elbow, extremely important. They want to make sure they get it right.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. I mean, you have one shot to get this right. So, and that's similar to what happened with Nick Mullins. Actually, his surgery took almost a month before they actually operated on him. He was injured in December, and then in late January he actually had the surgery, and they thought it was going to be Tommy John. They were waiting for the swelling to go down. Once they got in there, they realized, oh, it doesn't have to be Tommy John. Let's try this new deal. They did the internal brace. He was throwing within 2.5 months, and he was cleared by a team medical staff 5 months after the surgery date, 6 months after the injury. So even if we wait about 3 weeks or so to actually operate on Purdy, 3 weeks to a month, that's still going to put him in that end of July, early August timeframe, which is right around training camp. So if that's the route they go, then I don't think the timeline changes much, even if they wait, a couple weeks to operate here. And if it's Tommy John, he's going to be out for the whole season
A year
anyway. So
anyways, yeah.
it doesn't really, this isn't changing anything. You have to get it right. Waiting for the swelling to go down, figuring out your game plan makes total sense. So I get why they're waiting, but a lot of people I think are hearing that 6-month mark from the time of surgery, and they're like, well, hurry up. Like, if you don't get it, like now we're pushing into August, and does he have a chance to compete? But you look at the Mullins timeline, it was 5 months, like 5 months and 1 week from operation is when he was able to actually sign with the team and pass physicals, and 6 months total from injury date. So I still think we're in that same timeline, even if we wait a couple weeks here.
Yeah, and Purdy's a lot younger than what Mullins was when he got the injury, and Purdy's more of an athlete. So you would think he could recover even quicker.
Well, and not only that, but that it was literally a brand new surgery when he had it. He was like kind of the test dummy for it, right? So, and the fact that it went so well for him, now they've got more data. They know what works and what doesn't. It makes total sense. So I think, like I said, I still expect that if that's the route they go, we're talking end of July, very early August, right when training camp is starting. So I would expect that he would be there, unless he has Tommy John, which that doesn't sound like that's going to be the case necessarily. So I think we should be good to go here. Now, a decision around that May timeframe, though, that they do have to make, the 49ers organization, Suneil, is Brandon Ayuk and Javon Kinlaw, 5th-year options. That is coming up. They got to do that this year. What are you doing if you're the 49ers around these 5th-year options?
This might be the easiest decision that they ever have to make on first-round draft picks ever. There's one you clearly give the 5th year to. There's one you clearly don't. I'll let you finish the rest.
So Ayuk's gone. Kinlaw's getting paid. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think the numbers came out as well. I think it's like something like 14.1 mil for Ayuk, his 5th-year deal, based off of what he's done, time playing, and where he's at. And then I think it's like 10 and some change for Kinlaw. No way you're paying Kinlaw $10 million for 2 games, right? Like, how many games is he actually going to play? At this point, we know he's not able to stay healthy. When he is on the field, he hasn't shown anything that's worthy of $10 million. I'm keeping that money in the budget and going out getting some free agents that can stay healthy and, maybe fill that void for much cheaper. But yeah, Ayuk, you're bringing that boy back. Ayuk's the future. Ayuk's paying 14 on his way to 20 million a year or something like that. So,
yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Kinlaw's got it coming from both sides. He hasn't proven that he is a good player, and he hasn't stayed healthy. So there is no reason to give this man a 5th-year option. I'm sorry. Maybe he can prove to stay healthy this next year and be a good player. And then you can go the Giants route with Daniel Jones. And, hey, we didn't pick up your 5th-year option, but we would like to sign you. Maybe that's still a possibility. But as far as picking up that 5th-year option and paying him that much, no, that's not what you want to do. But Ayuk, I think, is the long-term number 1 wide receiver. I think that's definitely an easy decision there. And Fish and Chip says, Jesse, why isn't anyone talking about if we're going to retain our free agents? Is this a possible mass exodus? Oh, well, it's funny that you ask,
What
Fish and
a
Chips.
great segue, Fish and
Yeah,
Chips.
it's like you knew what we were going to do right here on Last Second Sports. And hold on a second, I'm going to change this. Hold on. I know it looks really wacky, guys. Let me switch this up. Hold up. Ah, there we go. Hopefully y'all can see that. Let's do it this way, maybe. Want to shift down here? No, that's worse. We're not doing that. Okay. All right. Hopefully you guys can see that. If not, I'm
Maybe
gonna
take the comment off.
Yeah, here, let me pull that as well. Sorry, guys. I'll get back to your comments here in a second. All right, let's do this. Okay, so yes, tons of free agents for the 49ers. We're looking at 25 players on this list, okay? And only 5 of them are restricted or exclusive rights restricted. So Juwan Jennings is going to be back. That's a no-brainer. He's exclusive rights, which means they basically just have to pay him like whatever the going market is for a young player, which is not much. And he's going to stay with the team. So I think he's a lock. We have Colton McKivitz that's restricted. We've got Kevin Givens, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. All those guys are all restricted. Those are your other 3 that are restricted. So do you think those 3 guys find their way back on this roster? Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, Givens, and Colton McKivitz?
Yes.
Okay.
I say yes because obviously we all expect Azeez Al-Shaair to go to Houston to follow D'Amico over there, and rightfully so. The guys earned, much more money than the 49ers are going to be able to pay. Flanagan-Fowles has been in the system some time. He's great on special teams, and he knows, the system. So I think that, he'll be back. And, I think Colton McKivitz, they've talked about him maybe being the solution at right tackle, grooming him to that. So I think they believe in him, and he's going to be a cheaper option than, other right tackles. Let's just put it that way.
There. Is that easier? Can everybody see it a little bit better? Zoomed in for you a little bit. Made it a little bit easier. Hopefully you guys can see that a little bit better. Okay. It's a little blurry on my screen, like when I look at it on StreamYard, but I think that's just because I'm uploading. Can you see it okay, Suneil? You see it?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear to me.
Okay, perfect. I figured it was. All right. So let's work our way up. We've got Charles Omenihu, Travarius Moore. Do you think either of those guys are back?
I think Charles Omenihu has worked his way into a bigger contract than the 49ers can pull him back, can pay on him. I would love to have him back, but I think he's making his bag somewhere else.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Okay, and
Moore, I think you let him walk. I don't think there's much value in bringing him back.
Right. Okay, so now it gets interesting though, because Jake Brendel was a starter this year, first time doing so in the NFL.
Pro Bowler.
He's 30 years old. What do you think they do with him?
He's a good backup option in the sense, like, if they don't have another solution. So I don't know. So talk is that they feel like they have some answers already on the roster with some of these rookies, whether it be Nick Zakelj or, moving a guy like Jason Poe, whatever the case may be as far as there, or going into the draft and getting somebody, or maybe bringing in somebody else. But I don't know. I think it's either going to be bring back Jake Brendel or have one of these like Nick Zakelj, get a shot there. I don't really see them bringing in a guy like Bozeman, who I think would be a great option there. And I don't think that I think if you're going into the draft with where they're picking at, there's no bona fide for sure first year starter that you're going to get in the 3rd round or below at that center position. So for me, I think Brendel comes back.
Okay. Yeah, I'm 50-50 on this one. I'm not quite sure what they end up doing. I could see them just sticking in house with a starter. But if he's not expensive, I mean, he wasn't the best center in the world, but he wasn't the worst either. So depending on what he's going to get paid, I think that's going to kind of figure out whether he does or does not. Jason Verrett, I don't think there's any chance. I don't even know if he's going to be able to play next year.
Right.
So
he might be retiring. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
unfortunately.
Yeah, that sucks, man. It really sucks. Ross Dwelly, Ross the Boss. Do you think he's back?
No. I think Ross would want to go somewhere else at this point. He gets absolutely zero play under Shanahan, and I think that there's options now, right? There's Gesicki. I don't think Miami's bringing him back, so he could go over there with McDaniels in Miami. The Jets, Houston. I think he has enough kind of options now where he doesn't just need to come back to San Francisco.
Yeah, I agree. And also it doesn't seem to be a fit. They want backup tight ends that can block better. He's not, that's not his specialty. And they certainly don't seem to want to use him the way that he should be used, which is a pure pass catcher and really a threat, I think, on third down. So I think he walks as well. So did he pass the scoring record? I assume that's what all these are about. So if that's the case, congratulations to LeBron James, man. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal. To have the scoring record, I think he's also number 4 in assists all time. Hell of a career, man. Hell of a career. And to be 38 years old, still doing what he's doing, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So shout out to LeBron if that is the case and he has passed it. Okay. Tabor Pepper, you think he's back?
Of course.
Yeah, he's got it.
Of course, man. That's the guy. Pepper is retiring a 49er, my guy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a must stay. Had him on the show many moons ago. Like Tabor Pepper a lot. He's just a funny dude. I think he sticks around as well. This one's interesting. Jordan Willis. What do you think?
My guy. So I think the 49ers lucked out with Willis because last year he was suspended for most of the season. So he performed at a high level, but in a short amount of time. So not enough to really other teams to kind of splurge on him. This year, he was injured for most of the season. So he's a highly productive player when he plays, but he hasn't been able to be on the field for quite some time. So I think the 49ers can eke out another of those 1-year prove-it deals with him at a reasonable price just because I don't think he has a market for him based off of just not enough tape for other teams to really pay attention. So I think he comes back, and I think that he actually gets a lot more playing time in this system next year with a lot of these guys leaving.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's earned the Amenahu treatment, right? Amenahu's probably going to get paid pretty well, and maybe Willis does, but I kind of tend to agree with you. I think he's a guy that they're going to have an opportunity to bring back. So I think they can bring him back. I think they probably will bring him back for depth purposes. Josh Johnson will not be on this team at all. So
Josh Johnson won't be in the league. Josh Johnson won't be in the league.
Yeah, exactly. Tayshaun Gibson, what are your thoughts here? Now, there is rumor that he might retire as well.
Right.
So that, let's assume he doesn't retire. I mean, that's the only thing we can go off of. If he retires, obviously he's not back. But let's assume he doesn't retire. What do you think?
1,000% he comes back. 49ers want him back. He mentioned that the only reason he'd come back is to play with Hufanga again, which is great praise for a second-year player. And if you look at Steve Wilkes coming in and being, more user-friendly, I guess, for the secondary, you would think that, Gibson could like all of those things, right? It's a perfect fit. He played amazing this season. And, I think that they could get him at a reasonable price and, make one more run at it and, hopefully get a Super Bowl. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for him to be back next season.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly played his way into a lot more money. But the fact that he basically would prefer to be here, He hasn't been a journeyman. I don't want to say that because he had made a Pro Bowl prior to this with Chicago, I believe. But he's going to be 33 years old. Sounds like he only wants to play one more year. You're not going to have to pay him a ton, like not as much as you're going to have to pay Jimmy Ward. So for me, I feel like he can fit in under that cap. Assuming he doesn't retire, I think he probably comes back as well. I think it's a good fit. Maurice Hurst. This is a guy who, man, talk about an injury bug. He has been bitten by it, but he has flashed at times. They certainly could use some of the depth help. Do you think he is back with the 49ers?
Jesse, this is a perennial, the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
And it's great depth, but if you can't play when you're needed to be playing, there's not much there. I just think that there's a lot of Maurice. Maurice Hurst is a good player when he's available. I think with him not being available all the time, there's a better value out there that would come to the 49ers because, the 49ers they just did it again with Charles Omenihu, right? He came in, was able to showcase. Now he's about to make a bag. I think there's enough players out there that they could get that could give them more than what injured Maurice Hurst is giving them.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he'll be back either, just because he can't stay healthy. Tyler Kroft, everybody's favorite tight end in the NFC Championship game, getting put there one-on-one with Mr. Reddick multiple times. Do you think he'll be back with this team?
I actually do. I think, obviously we said Dwelly's going to be gone. They can't just let all their tight ends go. You know what I mean? Like, Kittle needs to have some kind of backup. I do think this is a year where they do take another tight end in the draft, but you still want to have some depth there with veterans. I think Tyler Kroft, obviously he's going to be remembered by the fan base for that one block. You and me both think he did actually a better job than what he's getting credit for. And I think he's been reliable for them, and I think Shanahan likes him, his ability to block plus still be able to pass catch. So I think he is what he wanted Ross Dwelly to be. I think Tyler Kroft is. So I think he comes back. And I think Tyler Kroft isn't going to command big money in the open market. So I think it's a reasonable deal for both sides.
Yeah, I think they might be able to make it work. We'll see. Because I think they're going to draft a tight end as well. Oh, man, I feel like there's just so many of these guys floating around. I have to give an answer, so I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say that I don't think he comes back, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did. I really wouldn't. I could see that one going either way. Kerry Hyder. Now, Kosirik staying probably ups the chances of Kerry Hyder coming back because Kerry Hyder can't produce anywhere other than Chris Kosirik, and he played a little bit of defensive tackle down the stretch. I mean, he's he's a big boy. He's thick with two C's, milk in the mouth thick. Kerry Hyder, do you think?
Pause.
Do you think
big pause? Yo, Jesse, for real, sometimes, bro. Like, sometimes, bro, you really be getting some of these bars off, and I need to be a better job at the pause button because sometimes I just be letting you get it off. But for all the chat, I did get the pause in.
That's what you're here. If Grant is quality control on the 49ers, you're quality control on the second sport.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes the most sense for Kerry Hyder to come back, but I do think that Kerry Hyder still, he might be able to get some more money. Like, I think people might throw some money at him, but I think the 49ers would be interested in signing him. It's really about whether or not Kerry Hyder can get more on the open market. So I'm not sure about that.
Yeah. He's kind of in that Kroft range with me. It's like I wouldn't be shocked, but I could see him. Man, he's not going to get money anywhere else.
If he doesn't get money anywhere else, Jesse, I think he's for sure back.
Yeah, and
I think it just makes most sense.
Yeah, yes. I don't think he does, and they could use the depth, and because he can play inside and out, I think he probably comes back on a cheap 1-year deal too.
Yeah, he knows the system. So. Like, they gotta having guys that are familiar with the system obviously is going to be important.
Yeah. I usually get a lot of my stuff off the NFL fan shop, so most likely there, I would assume on this one. Very, very nice hat. I love this hat. Absolutely.
I thought they were all from the Last Second Sports merch shop, dude.
No, not the 49er ones. That's how you get sued, my friend. Which we're not doing here as quality control. You should know that.
No, I'm just saying there's great hats that you wear that are from the Last Second Sports merch shop. You know what I mean?
Nope,
that's what I was saying.
Extremely true. Extremely true. That's why you're quality control, man. That's why you were hired. All right, Hassan Ridgeway. Do you think he is back with the 49ers?
Yeah, I actually do. I do think that, Hassan Ridgeway has something to prove. I do think that, he didn't get a full opportunity to really showcase himself due to injuries. Once again, he is another kind of Maurice Hurst type where best ability is availability, and he seems to not have that ability very often. But I do think that there's going to be mutual interest between him and the 49ers just because they're going to be needing, defensive tackles, and he's one of them. He's played well in the league when he is available. It's just about whether or not he's going to be healthy. And, the 49ers are definitely going to have to sign some unhealthy people because that's just what they do. They're not going to sign just purely healthy, no injury risk type guys. This is the first one we're mentioning that is there. And so, yeah, he's going to be that guy.
Yeah, he's a roster filler for sure. I thought you were going to say, speaking of thick,
Pause.
Oh, that's so funny. I actually tend to agree with you. I think Hassan Ridgeway could find his way back on this roster as well. So yeah, and Givens, we talked about earlier. He is a restricted free agent. I think he'll be back. I think Givens is a must bring back to a certain extent. I mean, you can't just overpay him, but you got to bring Givens back. I agree. Right. And Ridgeway, he's a guy. See, him and Hyder are both guys that I think will end up on the roster. I don't know if they make the final 53. And that's where it'll get interesting depending on who they draft, how some of these other guys develop and come along. But they will definitely, I think, be on that initial roster. So I agree with you. No big deal. Pockets the cheesecake. Interesting name. I like it. I just wanted to answer your question though, because it is a good question, and we agree. Okay, Daniel Brunskill. Do you think
gotta bring him back? Gotta bring him back. Yeah. So I think Brunskill has proven his value to this team with his ability to go in wherever they need him. Right. He was the backup center, quote unquote, this year, but he played really big role in the right guard position, switching off with him and Burford. And if, we haven't gotten obviously to McGlinchey quite yet, but let's say it's not Colton McKivitz. Let's say Spencer Burford, they move to right tackle. They're going to need a right guard. And I think that you probably bring Brunskill back to do that, or, just to be kind of the utility guy that they could punch in and they trust, to make sure that the level of offensive line play doesn't drop too much.
Yeah, he's the utility guy, right? Like he's the guy that can play all 5 positions in a pinch. So yeah, you've got to bring Brunskill back, and he's not going to have that heavy price on the open market. I got to imagine he's going to stay close to that $2.5 million or so he was making last year. I think he's definitely he's worth it, even if he's not your starter, to pay that kind of money because he can play all those positions. So
the only wrench is there's a lot of options now, man. The problem is with all of these 49er coaches out there in the wilderness, now these guys that like most teams maybe don't know Brunskill that much, right? Because he's not like this wow player. Us as the faithful know his value and all that kind of stuff. But these other coaches, McDaniel, D'Amico, Sala, the guy over there ran in the Titans, right? He knows about Brunskill as well. Like now these guys have options. So it's, I think that, a guy like Brunskill, if he's valuable to the 49ers, he's going to be valuable to all those guys as well. So let's hope that we could bring him back. But I do think that that's a must bring back for the 49ers.
Yeah, I would love to bring him back for sure. Robbie Gould, man, this one's interesting to me. I mean, kicker is so damn important in this league, and he's about as clutch as they come. But little bit of an interesting relationship, right? Like they had to franchise tag him before they could sign him, and I don't know. He's 40 years old. What do you think about Robbie Gould? Do you think they bring him back?
Robbie Gould needs to not. I mean, I think they only bring him back if he's coming cheap. I don't think he's getting any more big contracts from the 49ers. I do think that there's a market for him, right? We saw how many teams were going through multiple kickers, and I think that people would trust Robbie Gould because, he's there to be trusted. I just think with where the 49ers are going to need to spend money, they can't overpay for a kicker. So I think Robbie Gould could give them a discount just because, he's older and, maybe he just wants to be with the contender and, he's made his money. Hopefully he could give the 49ers a little hometown discount, but I can't see them paying top money for him, to be honest.
Yeah, my guts, he's not back. They have a lot of picks in the back end of that draft, and this is, from what I understand, a pretty heavy, decent kicker draft. So I think they might draft someone, have him compete with another veteran of some sort. Robbie Gould, he's money, but man, this dude cannot be your guy that's kicking off this year. And you're not going to carry 3 kickers. So, I don't know. I personally think that Robbie Gould is likely not back. I won't be mad if he does come back, but you're still probably going to have to pay him in the neighborhood of four, anywhere between $3.5 to $5 million. And I don't know if they're going to be willing to do that. So we'll see. We'll see about Robbie Gould. We pretty much agree that Azeez is not going to be back, right?
He's going to be the Mike linebacker in Houston, probably.
I 100% agree. It makes too much sense. He's young. He's got that D'Amico system. D'Amico needs one of his guys. I 100% agree with you that he will be in Houston. So, all right. Let's save him for last because I think there's a lot of conversation to be had there. Emmanuel Moseley, do you think he's back with the 49ers?
Oh, I pray that he is. Once again, I think if Kyle Shanahan wasn't so darn good at developing other coaches, that there would be a chance that Emmanuel Moseley comes back just because he was injured. Yeah. But D'Amico Ryans knows what Emmanuel Moseley's capable of. Robert Saleh knows what Emmanuel Moseley's capable of. Mike McDaniel knows what Emmanuel Moseley's capable of. And Rand Carthen knows exactly what Emmanuel Moseley's capable of. So, and I think some of those teams have more money than the 49ers. It's just going to be hard. I think the only way they're able to re-sign Emmanuel Moseley is if he has an affinity to want to play to the 49ers, and the 49ers are willing to give him more years than maybe some of those other teams. And I don't know if they're willing to do that.
Yeah, this one's tough because the Texans make so much sense for him too.
Right.
Coming off of an injury, you're right. I mean, I was like, yeah, the 49ers will be able to keep him, but I don't know now. I don't know because that he's going to be liked by D'Amico. They drafted a corner. I forget which corner they took last year, but they took a corner who they think is going to be a stud. You add Emmanuel Moseley to the other side, Al-Shaair. Now all of a sudden things are looking good, maybe even a Jimmy Ward. So they could beef up that defense real freaking quick and probably have the money to do so. So, yeah, I hope Mosley's back. I hope Emmanuel Moseley is back. Let me get to these super chats real quick. 49ers Throwback says, appreciate your shows. Throwback, I appreciate your support, man. You are so supportive of the community. We all love and appreciate you. So thank you. Mike Crocker, what's up, Mike? He says, is Jason Poe still a project? Trent Williams likes him a lot. Yeah, Poe is, but again, we talk about the way the 49ers develop. There's always players that don't play or play very little. He's one of those guys that could break out next year and be a starter on this team somewhere. So I think there's a lot to like there. He's small, he's undersized, but man, he's pretty dang good. He's pretty good. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Poe, but I think there's a lot to like there for sure. Ebukam, do you think he's back?
I just think financially, no. I don't know. I think that, he's still probably, even though the 49ers did kind of pay him, but I think that the 49ers would bring him back if he gives them a discount. But once again, same thing, right? Houston could use him too. Titans could use him, so we'll see. My guess is he's probably gone.
I agree. I think he's gone. Pockets, they can't trade Kinlaw. His money's fully guaranteed. So even if they cut him or trade him, they owe everything to him. So he'll be on this roster. They're just not going to pick up the 5th-year option. That's basically what it comes down to. So no, I think Kinlaw will definitely be on this roster. I agree. I don't think Ebukam will be back. Quite frankly, he didn't produce to the money that they signed him to produce at, what they thought he would be. He just didn't produce to that number. So, no, I don't think he's back. Jimmy Garoppolo is our starter. We already talked about that, so he'll be back.
Yeah, Brock Purdy is gone because of Jimmy Garoppolo. Right?
For sure. I mean, they're going to trade Brock. They're going to trade Trey. I mean, this is Jimmy's team, so.
That's what Montana wants, and
that's what Montana wants. So that's what we're going to do. So yes, obviously Jimmy Garoppolo's gone, and we agree Jimmy Ward's likely gone too, right?
Jimmy Ward agrees that Jimmy Ward is gone. Jimmy Ward has washed his hands of the 49ers. He will always love this team, but he knows he's off to greener pastures.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Okay, we saved the best for last because this one is going to bring up the most conversation. He is, man, he's an interesting one. This fan base, a big chunk of you guys do not like Mike McGlinchey. There's a big chunk that does like Mike McGlinchey and think he's underrated. Just overall, do you think Mike McGlinchey, do you think he's back with the 49ers?
Mike McGlinchey will be the highest paid right tackle of this free agency. So I don't think he's back. And I think that because us as 49ers see Mike McGlinchey so much, and there's certain content creators that do a really, really great job of highlighting Mike McGlinchey when he's not playing well. And there's just kind of been the narrative about Mike McGlinchey. We lose, and obviously where he was drafted, I don't think he's necessarily lived up to being a top 10 pick, which is what he always gets held up to. But I definitely can't name 10 more right tackles that are better than him. And potentially you might not even be able to name 5 more right tackles that are better than him in the league. So yeah, there's things that are left to be wanted from Mike McGlinchey, but I think the way that he's going to get paid this offseason, people are going to be shocked at how much the league looks at Mike McGlinchey. But I think he's going to be overpriced for the 49ers, and they're going to have to let him walk.
I agree with you, by the way. I think my prediction for McGlinchey is 3-year, $50 million. He's going to get that from somebody, and it's not going to be the 49ers. I think the 49ers want him back. If it was their choice, he'd be back. I think he would prefer to stay here, but at some point the money's too much. And the 49ers just really strike me as a team that's like, we're fine. Like, we'll start Brunskill or McKivitz, or we'll move Burford over. We'll slide in Poe.
Bring back Compton.
We'll put Zakel at center. Like, we'll run with a whole new right side of the line. It's not a big deal. We believe in these guys, and people are going to freak out, and then it'll end up being okay. So I think McGlinchey is likely not back, but maybe they might be able to free up enough money to make it worth it.
And he has to give a discount.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I was looking at just like the spot track numbers on him, and it's pretty filthy, man. Let's see what they say. It's right here.
That's definitely not it.
That's not it. No, it was something like 19 or something like that I saw.
That's what I thought. Oh, here we go. Average salary 14.65, 4-year 58. I said 3-year 50. So yeah, I mean we're in that 15 to 16 million dollar range likely. And I think it's probably closer to 16 than it is 14. So that's just me. So I agree, man. I think likely McGlinchey's gone. McGlinchey is going to be gone. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But all right, we just laid it out. I think next week we got to bring some free agents that we would like to see the 49ers sign. We did it last year. It was a lot of fun. A couple of them actually ended up with the 49ers. We had some pipe dreams on there that we knew pretty much wouldn't be here, but Son Reddick, guys that just didn't end up here that we'd hoped would be here. But either way, it's still a lot of fun. So we'll definitely do that next week, along with whatever gifts the 49ers want to throw our way, because they always do every single week. I'm sure at that point we'll know what Brock Purdy's going to do with his surgery, hopefully. So there's going to be a lot to talk about. Make sure
there's a game on Sunday. There's a game on Sunday.
Whatever. I mean, most of this chat's going to be piss-faced drunk and not even care, to be honest with you. I assume we're all Chiefs fans, which is an interesting twist. So we're going to see that on Sunday. But make sure you subscribe to Suneil's channel. Link is in the description. Make sure you subscribe here as well. We are on our way to 10,000, very, very close. So let's hit that threshold. And I think I'm going to do a call-in show on Thursday. So stay tuned. Peace.